teenage pregnancies ukuthi knowledge like incane yabo abazali abakhulumi asikhulumi ngazo lezi zinto lesiyenza sazi next nje yabo and like ne peer pressure yabo
ngokubona kwami it's because of unemployment rate phezulu so abantwana bajola amantombazana ajola nabantu bayacabanga ukuthi bazothola imali kubo then babe pregnant.
Child-beheaded families, you find that that's one factor that causes a whole lot of teenage pregnancies because there's not enough leadership at home. There's not a lot of guidance for young people at home. You find that also the education system is not doing much to actually teach children about teenage pregnancies, the causes of unprotected sex.
At the unemployment rate. Yeah? So obviously with us, when we are like at unemployment, and then you're gonna start running to to those guys who are gonna provide for you because you have to provide for your family sometimes. Yeah? So obviously, like if kohalena haona chelete, how we pay bana babangwe, bana babatletsa, batlo fa chelete, and then you're gonna end up also like all pregnant.
Adolescent pregnancy is common in South Africa, with data pointing to an epidemic of adolescent pregnancy, putting a strain on the healthcare systems and societies. Kungabe yini imbangela yokukhulelwa kwentsha eNingizimu Afrika? Yini engenziwa ukunqanda ukukhulelwa kwentsha nokubhebhetheka kwegciwane lesandulela ngculazi nengculazi entsheni yaseNingizimu Afrika? Isihloko sethu umbukeli kuleli viki sikwamukela ohlelweni iAsikhulume Let's Talk nolungunqa phambili. Igama lami ngengubongiwe uMakhumalo waKwaZwane. Sikukhumbuze ke mbukeli ukuthi ningaba ingxenye lolu hlelo ngokusishayela ucingo sizwe imbono noma imibuzo yenu. Inombolo zethu ke zithi 0117140677 noma 0117140678. Ungabuye futhi usithole kumakhasi ethu okuxhumana ku Twitter @SABC Izindaba kanye na ku Facebook SABC Izindaba. Ukuze kubelula ke mbukeli sicela uqale #Asikhulume SABC News # bese ke ubhala umbuzo nombono wakho. Asikhulume. Mbukeli siyazi ukuthi iNingizimu Afrika inomthwalo omkhulu wengculazi emhlabeni wonke. Imbiko ithi yinkulungwane namakhulu amathathu 1300 amantombazana asakhula kanye nabesifazana abasebasha abatheleleka ngesifo sengculazi HIV kuleli lizwe masonto onke KwaZulu-Natal. Lesi sifundaze siqophe umlando ngembiko yokukhulelwa kwentsha engu-26,515 enyangeni ezisishiyagalombili kanti enyakatho Kapa angaphezulu kuka-3,000 amantombazane esikole phakathi kweminyaka engu-10 no-19 akhulelwa phakathi kuka-2022 noNdasa ka-2023. Uma kubhekwa ukuthi izingane ezineminyaka engu-10 ukuya ku-14 ziyakhulelwa, ku-Asikhulume kuleli sonto sibuza ukuthi ubani okhulelisa lamantombazana asemancane? Yini engenziwa ukunqanda ukukhulelwa kwentsha eNingizimu Afrika nokubhebhetheka kwesandulela ngculazi nengculazi entsheni? Indaba yokudlengulwa kwezingane evame ukuzifihla njengokukhulelwa kwentsha ake sizwe ukuthi iNPA itheni ngalokhu kulombiko esilethelwa intatheli yethu uLindokuhle Simelane.
Amathuthuzela care centers ezinye zezikhungo ezithulwe uhulumeni ukusiza abadlwenguliwe ekutheni amacala abo asheshe aphothulwe, kanti nezinga lokugwetshwa kwezigilamkhuba nabelokhu liphansi ngezingqinamba eziningi likhuphukile.
Ethuthuzela siyi-one stop center of which sinama-department awu-4 on site. Sine-department ye-SAPS amaphoyisa, sine-unity FCS especialize ngalawo ma-case esisebenza nayo. Sibe ne-department NPA, National Prosecuting Authority, la siba khona nama-officials wase-NPA that are based here kuma-premises we-health kuThuthuzela Care Center. Sibe nama-officials from Department of Health, abo-sister nabo-doctor, laba basizayo ukuthi bakollecte i-evidence ukuze sizoyisebenzisa e-court, and then bakhona nokusiza uku-issuing i-medication kuma-victims wethu we-rape.
Abaholi bomphakathi nezinhlangano ezingenzi inzuzo sebenxuse iNPA ukuthi iqinise umthetho obhekele ukudlwengula kwezingane ezisencane. Lokhu kuza kamuva kwembiko ethi esifundazweni saKwaZulu-Natal kukhulelwe izingane ezibalela kwizinkulungwane ezingama-26 ezisukela eminyakeni eyi-10 kuya kwiminyaka eyi-14 ubudala ezinyangeni eziyisishiyagalombili ngonyaka odlule.
We can say we see plus 15-20 statutory rape. So some will come without pregnancy involved, and then some will come with pregnancy involved. Those are referred from the local clinics.
Noma ke iNingizimu Afrika inomthetho iSexual Offences Act, iningi alinalwazi oluphelele ngayo.
Remember, we need to prepare the child because this is statutory rape. What does statutory rape sisho ukuthini? And then the family as well, because sometimes abantu bakithi they are not empowered. They know ukuthi pregnant kuzohlawula and stuff like that. So the social development needs to ukuthi baba prepare and then a case a report. And then in cases like that, if the family are a convulsed case, social development will intervene to assist in terms of opening a case on those cases.
I-NPA isiveze ukuthi eminye imindeni izixazulela yona amacala okudlwengula kwezingane ngaphandle kokubandakanya abomthetho nokungavumelekile.
You do not have cooperating witnesses because you must remember statutory rape means two people have consented to have sexual intercourse, but the law doesn't allow that. So who is your complainant? Your complainant is the parent. And if that parent is not able to convince the child to go and testify at court, you're going to have challenges. They're not going to come forth and testify. You have instances where when you read statements, your children have said, no, we told accused persons that we are 16. And you ask, why did you not say you're 17? Why did you not say you're 18? That's because we have been going out giving campaigns and saying to people, you need to know what statutory rape is. And that also includes defenses. So when they mention the age 16, they know what's going to happen. That's part of them not wanting to cooperate with the legal process.
Mbukeli, umbuzo wethu uthi yini engenziwa ukunqanda nokufundisa ngobungozi bokukhulela kwentsha eNingizimu Afrika. Asikhulume.
Sibonge umbiko wentatheli yethu ulindo kuhle simelane asamkele ihambeli zethu kwiZoom sinomandisa Fakude oyi-lead for treatment and literacy kwinhlangano iSouth African National AIDS Council nomnumzane uV Gani ongusihlalo weKZN Parents Association studio sinononhlanhla Mthembu ongumsunguli wenhlangano eyimele iWomen in Progress. Let me thank you all for your time. Nonhlanhla, I'm going to begin with you. You were a teen mom in fact, and ngizibuza ukuthi kwakuze kanjani ukuthi ukhulelwe umncane.
Ngiyabonga kakhulu Bongi upapa. Yes, upapa. Engizothi futhi kubuye kufake phakathi into yokuthi ulwazi lwalungekho enough. And I'm saying lwalungekho enough because things have changed now. And that is why even in my mentorship programs, I do tell young people ukuthi i-excuse yokuthi asina information asiyishiye ngaphandle ayisekho necessary. But what we need to look at is i-involvement yethu as our parents. I was raised with love. Ukukhuliswa ugogo, it's one of the best ways any girl can experience life, and it was beautiful. But gogo was busy. Sasibaningi futhi ekhaya abantwana babo auntie nami abafowethu. It was just too much. I don't think ukuthi one notice and notice ukuthi uNonhlanhla wenzani. Yes, there was a time early in my teens when they felt ukuthi hayi man, as long as uhlakanipheke kakhulu, let's take it to the clinic. And they did that, which for them was to prevent the cost. But there was no discussion. Angitshelwa ukuthi why ngimikiswe clinic, angitshelwa ukuthi kwenziwa yini. Instead, information ngase ngithola kubangani bami abebathi hayi Nhlanhla injection izokumosha leso sikhathi ke ngangakabi ngaka kwathiwa injection izokumosha uzoba mkhulu uzothini ngayiyeka ngaqamba manga ngathi I'm still going to the clinic, which I wasn't. So that's where the involvement of my parents comes in, and that is why I still use that message to other parents to say get involved, be present ebantwaneni benu, be aware of what they're doing. Right.
And I'm going to come to that part in just a moment. Let me come to you, Mr. Gani. We see children as young as 10 falling pregnant, and we ask ourselves the question, why?
Thank you so much for the question. We should be shocked as a community. We should be astounded because anybody having any sexual relations with a child as 10, it's a criminal offense. And why isn't criminal action being taken against any of these perpetrators? And I call them perpetrators. Why haven't there been any action taken against them? You know, the legal age for having sex in this country is 16. So when we're looking at 1,254 children aged between 10 and 14, basically giving birth, we have to ask ourselves the question, this is a criminal offense, it's a crime. Why aren't we acting against that? The other thing as well is the numbers that we see now have always been there, you know, and what happens with us is every now and then, every year, when somebody makes some statement about it, and then everybody springs into action. We need to do something about it. Let's have these conversations. But where are the lessons? Where is the education that's happening? So when you're asking me about between 10 and 14-year-olds, this is purely a crime, nothing less than a crime.
And Mandisa, one of the things that, of course, we're hearing here is that this is a crime, and we've listened to Nonhlanhla. She talks about upapa. She talks about the fact that sometimes, you know, ugogo would not be there. There wouldn't be enough education. But we are in an information age, and one is wondering, you know, why are young children falling pregnant in the manner in which they are in these numbers that we are seeing?
Thank you, Wongiwe, and good day to everyone and the listeners. I think I want to align my statement with the two speakers. You know, information is there. I understand what you are saying, but it depends on where. My surname is Mandisa Dugashe. The information is there, but it depends on where the information is being shared and the content that is being shared, and who is sharing the information. Remember, young people of the day, they've got a way of communicating, they've got their way, their language, and if you're talking, I mean, different media platforms where that information or the model used to work for us at Nonhlanhla's, that may not work for the children of today. So really, we really need to find ways in terms of engaging them. Again, sometimes you cannot allow or expect me to get through a young person, a 10-year-old, a 16-year-old, as a 40-plus-year-old. I don't want to disclose my age. But we really need to align and make sure that programs are peer-led. We used to have peer education programs in schools where there will be the young Nonhlanhlas that will go to school and say, I'm a young parent, these are the challenges that I'm experiencing, so as to make sure that they actually allow what they're getting themselves into and what implications of maybe getting pregnant at that age is.
And I'd like us to, just after the break, talk about this some more as to what does this education then entail, Nonhlanhla, because you speak to them. What are some of the things that they feel we are not listening to, that we are not saying to them in order for, you know, the youngsters to understand the dangers of falling pregnant at a young age? Mbukeli, siyabuya, unganyakaza. Mbukeli, sikwamukele kanti uma seqeda ukuhlanganyela nathi sikhuluma ngenkinga yokukhulelwa nokuthelelwa ngegciwane lengculazi kwentsha eNingizimu Afrika. Sisahleli nezihambeli zethu. Angibuyele kuwe Mandisa ngaphambi kokuthi ngibuyele kuNonhlanhla la. There is, of course, the alarming statistics that we are seeing. For example, the South African Council of Educators identifying blessers and teachers as responsible for impregnating 11,000 learners in Limpopo. This is in 2022. This also further compounds the problem because some of the people we trust with our children are the ones that are actually violating our little ones.
Yes, that is true. And it's very alarming and frustrating because these are the people that are supposed to be protected. The young people that we are talking about that are vulnerable, they're taking advantage of those young people. Actually, I'm one of them. You know, I fell pregnant when I was 16, and it was intentional because if it was, I think Nonhlanhla mentioned, Mr. Gavi, that sometimes is because of issues at home that actually lead you to go out, maybe seek advice, seek support, seek economic support resources from outside. So I think it's very important that we really find ways to actually protect these young people. I think what is most frustrating is teachers, and it's not only in different provinces. This is a national cry where teachers are the ones that are finding the young girls attractive. They're actually buying them, giving them money. And I think what is mostly frustrating and stressing to us as women is to find parents, especially grandparents, parents will actually leave these kids behind with their grandparents, trusting them that they will take care of them. They are the ones at times, I think it was in KZN, when there was a case of a grandmother who was selling 12, 14, 16-year-old to working men during the weekend, so that by the time they come back on Sundays, they're bringing the money back home. Yeah. So I think the society is very sick, to be honest with you. And I think I heard from news that I think the 14-year-old and the 15-year-old, they are now pregnant. So not only being exposed to pregnancy, they're also exposed to HIV. Because remember, these older men, they've been sleeping around. Some of them, they're actually demanding sex without condoms with these young girls, because they're saying, if you give me without condom, I'll give you money, knowing exactly that they've got HIV. They're not even on treatment to actually protect these young girls from contracting HIV.
So, Mr. Ghani, is that a signal that the family structure in some parts has collapsed?
I think it certainly has. But just to come back to the earlier point that you mentioned just now, remember that you're talking about teachers impregnating young learners. This only be recorded, or this is only what you may call the reported issues. I've been speaking to people from SABC and people who were there, and they say that the number of cases that go unreported is staggering, because obviously nobody wants to make a case. So, on that context, educators, people who are in schools, adults are supposed to be protecting our children. They are not supposed to be the abusers in this case. In terms of the question that you asked, is it a society? We look at, and this is probably the context that I need to also engage in. We are looking at society, and society is to blame because it says it takes a village to raise a child. And for some reason, we find that society doesn't care anymore. Okay. The second thing is, we talked about educating the girl child. What about educating the boy child? Because they're just as complicit in this scenario as anybody else. What about educating the boy child? What about having kind of programs? Because we concentrate on the women, we concentrate on these girls, and we say, look, you've got pregnant, it's irresponsible of you, it's this, it's that, it's that. But you must have another willing participant. And how are we treating that? What kind of programs, what kind of intervention are we doing in that context? Because we've had these programs in school. It comes up, intermittently. There's not a genuine, consistent, and continuous program that are rolled out and that are implemented in schools so that we continuously address these problems. It's not there.
Especially,
so perhaps that's also the conversation that we need to have.
Yeah, especially when you think about the fact that, sometimes a 16-year-old girl is pregnant, but the boy continues with school and their life continues and nothing really stops for them and the girl's life stops. Notantla, let me come back to you, because there's probably a young person watching right now, a young girl watching right now, and I'd like us to talk to her about the challenges of being pregnant at a very young age and to raise that child as a teenager.
Yeah, I think that's where education for these children needs to start, where they need to know that responsibility. Number one, does not come cheap, doesn't come easy. It comes with a lot of emotional baggage. At 15, it was the hardest thing for me to separate the 15-year-old girl who still wanted to be a child and play, and the mother who had to look after a son. And I'm grateful because my family was they were very strict on that. They made sure that you are going to take care of this child. But one thing happened. They did give me an opportunity to rise back. With these young girls is that we have families that give up on them too quick. Yes, it's wrong. Yes, but they need support. The reason why a lot of girls continue to have one child after another is because the minute it happens for the first time, somebody tells them, somebody tells them, I am so grateful that I did have an opportunity to go back to school, but did come back home and take care of umntwana. But then it takes away your youth. There's a part of me that has missed so much from in life of being a young person. I remember even when I completed my qualification, I couldn't run after my career the way I needed to. Instead, I had to start looking for a job, and any job at that time. Remember, my first job was working at the funeral parlor, all because I had a son to take care of. And by that time, I would see my friends progress in life, but there was this thing holding me back. It is not easy.
And Mbukeli, on that note, asithi nje ukuphuza amanzi kancane siyabuya ukuthi sibone izisombululo zalenkinga ukuthi ngabe zihamba kanjani. Sasiphetha Mbukeli, ake sibheke izisombululo zalenkinga ukuthi ngabe singayinqoba kanjani into yokuthi sibone abantu abasha bekhulelwe kanti futhi nabanye beyithola sebesuleleka ngesandulela ngculazi. Nonhlanhla angibuye kuwe. Let's just start talking about the solutions. You say that families must support them, but it's not only pregnancy that we worry about here. Sikhathazeka nangento uMandisa akhuluma ngayo, which is for them to have or contract the HIV virus, and that is something that is very concerning as well. So for you, yini into esingayenza manje, which is an easy win for us to be able to overcome this problem?
There's a long way to go, kodwa ikhona an easy way esingaqala ngayo. Number one, asiyeke ukwenza kube fashionable ukuthi abantwana bethu baphile impilo abayiphilayo. We actually entertain them naguma TikToks, naguma videos wabo, benza zonke izinto that are socially not okay for them, and they lead them to izinto ezinjengama-sexual intercourse. The lifestyle abayiphilayo, izindawo abahamba kuzo, and siloku siyadlala siyahleka sithi ama-2000 athini. It has become a joke. We need to stop that. We are entertaining nonsense enziwa abantwana bethu bese sicabanga ukuthi bazobuya ba-safe banganagqiwane, bazobuya ba-safe bangenabantwana. Le mpilo abayiphilayo is going to lead them to that. Seku-easy these days kuhlangana nabantwana bazenzela into yabo endleleni. Ungakhuzi unonhlanhla umdala, because we ask good. Number one, it's either bazokuphendula, but let's take back our place as adults. Number two, ekolweni kunzima nokuthi ufike ukukhulume a message that will warn these children, because mawufika ubathola vele sebahleli ngeziso. And department uthi mabahambe baye ekolweni, but aqede anganiki ama-teachers iskill sokuthi bayihandle kanjani lento. The next thing enzakalayo, everybody else sees it fashionable. Ubathola noma bahleli eklasini ubone ukuthi, and vele that's what happens to a pregnant, not just badala when we are pregnant. Sometimes we want to ease up. They are just there. Good normal. Sesikwenze kwaba normal.
And it's quite interesting that you raised that. And Mandisa, it's on that point that I'd like us to talk about solutions here. What becomes the role of the media?
Media is very powerful, and it depends on what information is being shared on media, different media platforms. So I think we really need to come together with different structures, because again, we've got a comprehensive sexuality education that is supposed to be taught in schools. But I think what is very important, those scripted lessons must come to media, not only in schools. But I'm so disappointed in South Africa, for instance, that we are struggling. I think whoever is supposed to be implementing, I don't want to mention different structures, to implement comprehensive sexuality education. It is believed that the CSI is actually promoting sex and everything, and will actually increase the number of pregnancy. Already, we're dealing with teenage pregnancy, child pregnancy incidents that is increasing to young people. So we really need to come together as parents, all different stakeholders, to embrace comprehensive sexuality education. This is one of the solutions that we can bring on on board. I think what is also key and important, community leaders, religious leaders and cultural leaders in communities. It is very key that we hold imbizos. So this is a community issue which only communities can actually solve in ensuring that you are dealing with it. Economically empowerment, I think that is very key because some of them are not in school, they are out of school, but in order for them to survive and have economically support, they could really have to do these issues of sleeping with older men. So there are a number of things against laws against sexual, violence, because some of them, they're getting pregnant, they're getting HIV out of rape that are not reported at times. So there are a number of issues and solutions that we can come up with.
Definitely a lot. I'm going to come to you, Mr. Gani, right on that point. When it comes to, you mentioned something earlier, the education of the boy child. Where do you begin as parents?
It's important that parents start having these conversations. I know in many households it becomes very difficult for parents to communicate with their children with regards to sex and sexual education and responsible sexual behavior. So I think that's important that those conversations happen. I think we have to, as parents, start to get involved. The situation is not improving and it's probably going to get worse. We see the numbers are increasing. The second thing is education in schools is very important. The support has to be there. And not only that, it has to be consistent. It mustn't be something that's only done sporadically. It has to be consistent. It has to be there all the time. I think, the other guest mentioned about the fact that as communities, we need to come together. And that's exactly the point. As communities, we need to come together, whether we do it in our small tribal groups, whether we do it in our religious groups, but we have to start addressing this. It's not improving the situation at all.
Let me thank you all for your time. Mbukeli siyabonga kakhulu na ukuthi uhlanganyele nathi inkinga le okumele siwuMzansi Afrika ukuthi sikwazi ukuthi sinqobe kuningi sekuveziwe namhlanje ake sikhulume ngakho nasey'nkundleni zethu zokuxhumana. Sibonga kakhulu futhi nakuyihambeli zethu uMandisa Dukashe oyi-lead for treatment and literacy kwinhlangano i-South African National AIDS Council nomnumzane uVigani ongusihlalo se-KZN Parents Association nomNonhlanhla Mthembu ongumsunguli wenhlangano eyimele i-Women in Progress. Okwakhumalo wakwazwane nethimba le-Asikhulume uthi nisale kahle.